Ask the Podcast Coach for June 22nd, 2024.
Let's get ready to podcast.
There it is. It's that music that means it's Saturday morning. It's time for Ask the Podcast Coach, where you get your podcast questions answered live. I'm Dave Jackson from the school nobody likes a Charlie in the box, from the school of podcasting.com. And joining me right over there, his voice has already changed. It's the one and only Jim Cullison from theaverageguy.tv. Jim, how's it going, buddy?
Good, Dave. Happy Saturday morning to you. Wasn't that a Brady Bunch episode? Where
yes.
Not Greg, but
Peter.
Peter
Yes.
Brady, right? Peter Brady. Well, anyways, good to be back on Ask the Podcast Coach. Big thanks, Danny, filling in for me last week. Always nice that we have a great community who can fill in my absence. I got to spend some time with some younger guys, just chatting, asking some questions. It was definitely worth the time. Thanks for giving me a week off, and it's always good to be back.
Yeah, I swear, I don't know if it existed or not, but when I was in like junior high, I think my mom went to Kmart and shopped and looked for like the Peter Brady collection. I was like, what are you doing, Mom? You want me to wear that to school? Like, oh, you're killing me. So, yeah. Anyway, but hey, it's midsummer, time to get up and go. We're going to do that, of course, with the awesome coffee pour. There it is. And that coffee pour is brought to you by our good friend Mark over at podcastbranding.co, because, they're going to see you before they hear you. And if you want something to look good, there really is only one place to go, and that is podcastbranding.co. I've used Mark for Podcast Hot Seat, Your Podcast Website, Podcast Rodeo Show, Ask the Podcast Coach, School of Podcasting, and the list goes on and on. He's done, I saw on Facebook, I think he just went over 500 different artwork that he's now done for podcasts. And of course, he also does your whole website if you need that. So this is a guy that's not only a podcaster, not only an award-winning graphic artist, but he's got lots of experience. Isn't that what you want? So he knows what works. And the beautiful thing is, he will sit down with you one-on-one and listen to what your show's about. Then let his marketing brain take over and make something that matches your show. He's an awesome guy, and it's the best money I've ever spent. Every time I have him do something, I'm like, perfect, that's exactly what I wanted. So check him out over at podcastbranding.co.
And of course, a big thanks to our good friend Dan Lefebvre over there, based on a true story podcast.com. I missed 2 weeks, so a bunch of movies covered in that. Loving, Waterloo, J. Edgar, Amelia, All the President's Men, and Lizzie, all available for you in episodes. Dan does a great job, and if you're a movie buff, it's going to be your go-to podcast. I'm just going to say it. Or it's during the summer, you got some extra time, you need something extra to listen to, give it a download, give it a listen. Check it out today, based on a true story, out at basedonatruestorypodcast.com. And of course, Dan, thanks for your sponsorship.
Yeah, I saw a thing in Reddit this morning, and I thought we could start with this because we're going to talk about yapping. I've heard the phrase "stop your yapping," but when I saw this, I was like, maybe this is a kinder, gentler Dave. Maybe we all start someplace. But this guy said he was looking for a podcast name. And he said, I want to start a podcast, just me, and that I don't know what this means. In parentheses, he says F20. And I'm like, okay, but I'm having trouble trying to find a name for it. I won't have a specific topic to talk about. I'm basically just going to be yapping, and maybe that's it, just yapping. But in an organized way, basically about life, problems, thoughts, drama, stuff like that. I would appreciate the help. I'm also Hispanic, so Spanish podcast names are welcomed too. And so my first thing was when he said, I'm going to be talking about everything. There was a part of me that was like, yeah, no, that's not a good answer, my friend. But then I thought, and I even said, there we go. Danny has filled it in. F20 stands for female. That is 20. Why are the comments not coming up? I'm clicking. Hold on. What's going on? There we go. And so, there was a part of me that's like, go back and figure out what you're going to talk about and come on. But I was like, on the other hand, there are those times, like I have Building a Better Dave, which is going to have a new episode this weekend, but that's just something I put out whenever I feel like it. There is absolutely zero thought of monetization on that. and it's just me yapping, and I thought maybe we just all need to start with a yapping podcast, get our feet wet, figure out what an RSS feed is, and go from there.
If your yapping is interesting and entertaining and fun, people listen, there's plenty of yapping podcasts out there. If we're going to continue to use that term. And I think it just means just chatting, right? Type deal. There's some people who find that very interesting and they find it funny. I think there's some element of what we do here, Dave. That's a little bit of yapping. We're kind of yapping every week. So again, I think it all goes back. If it's interesting, if you can find an audience, if you're a good marketer, if you do all those things, and depending upon what you want from a success standpoint, I do it if that's what you want to do, and then set your expectations accordingly, and then do what you need to do to make it as popular or unpopular as you want.
Yeah. Chris Nessie in the chat room says, school is out for me now because he's a teacher over at House at EdTech. My wife and I are creating a fun podcast summer that will launch in the fall. There you go. That's what summer vacation. What'd you do on your summer vacation? I started a podcast with my wife. That's cool.
Yeah. Maybe it'd be fun. That could be a fun marriage. It could either improve it or destroy it.
Yes. Danny says, my first podcast was a yappy podcast where I talked about a news story or something that happened that week while I sipped a dram. A dram of my favorite.
That's a drink.
A dram.
This would be a dram. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Of my favorite single malt whiskey. Enjoyed that one. That would be fun. There you go. There was one called the Drunk Cast. And they would basically all get hammered and turn on the microphones. And I'm like, that's...
If you're funny and drunk, that's doable. Yeah. Some people aren't so funny. And you're funnier. You're not as funny as you think. You know this, Dave. You've been around a bunch. You've been at a podcast conference around a bunch of us. I remember the time that had been drinking and you had not. And you came in and we were all laughing. And you did not have that look of contentment and satisfaction on your face. You're like, oh, great. I've joined a bunch of drunk people. And we thought we were hilarious. We just thought we were hilarious. But
between playing in a band where you're often, do you know the electric slide? That whole 9 yards. And then married to a flaming alcoholic for 10 years. That's a boatload of stuff. So, but there we go. And then Chris is saying, ask the podcast coach. It's our new tagline, yapping and rapping.
Yapping and rapping.
And then DR says it's hard to yap and be fun in a solo show. It's much easier as a dialogue versus a monologue.
Well, I think there's some good radio folks. Love them or hate them. And Rush Limbaugh was a yapper. Rush would just yap by himself. He had open phones Friday and all that other stuff. But he loved to hear himself talk. Let's just be really clear about that. And
ladies and gentlemen, it was almost one word. Ladies and gentlemen, like what? All right.
Yeah, he was a yapper for sure. He yapped about politics, right? Obviously, but sometimes other things. But you can do a yapping, and he was very popular, right? Very popular in the day. So I think you can do a yapping, solo show and somehow make it work. The sports guys do this all the time.
Yeah. Right? Jim Rome. Because what's weird is today on the show, we're going to talk about topic A and then B and why did so-and-so do this? And then it's and then he'll start to do topic A and have to take a commercial break because, radio. They'll come back and he'll spend half of his next segment explaining the things that they're going to talk about. Topic A, topic B, and topic C. And then he'll finish topic A and have to take another break. It's like they barely because half their time is spent refreshing what they just did or resetting what they did. Because in radio, they say you get a new audience like every 10 minutes. Somebody's getting out of the car and a new person's getting into the car because where else are you going to listen to a podcast these days? But
Rome would take these giant pauses in his 10 years ago when I was listening to him more often than I do. I haven't heard him in a long time, but he would do these giant pauses where he would say something and it was literally just twice as long as that dead air.
Yeah.
And you would think, wow, does that works? That dead air worked for Jim Rome. And that was his style.
And of course, somebody's bringing up Paul Harvey.
Yeah.
There was a guy. He wasn't really yapping though. He was more.
He was reading. He was reading.
He was very prepared.
Yeah.
And
hello, Americans.
Yeah.
Good day.
But
Paul
there's
Harvey.
page 2.
And now the rest of the story.
Yeah.
The kids are like, who?
Yeah.
What? I mean, I grew up, my dad listened up to, AM radio incessantly all day Saturdays. And of course, you heard Paul Harvey all the time. So
WHLO.
big part of my childhood. Part of my childhood. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember we had really crappy cars growing up. And there was a Plymouth Duster that we owned that was about 80% Bondo. And I was in the middle of the front seat. My buddy was on the passenger side. My mom was driving us to school and just turning the knob. There was almost this little AM radio and the speakers in the front and just the, WHLO. And I was like, ugh. And I was like, are we going to listen to, because back then, FM was where all the cool kids were. So yeah, Todd the Gator. Yeah, I miss Paul Harvey. I used to listen to it while riding with my dad at work. Yep, everybody's listening to him with their parents.
With their dad, yeah.
And
you can get them on YouTube, by the way. If you want to go back and listen to some of those, you can do that. Get nostalgic.
Yeah, you can find him there. And then early versions, the very early versions of That's the Way I Heard It, which was Mike Rowe. He very much tipped the hat to Paul Harvey and said, "Oh yeah, I'm basically stealing his format." And then he got a bad case of Roganitis, and now his shows are, an hour and a half long. So,
well, listen, John Tesh has gone that direction. I don't know if you ever listen to John Tesh. He's got an FM radio.
Yeah, I've heard him on the radio. Yeah,
pop radio. He plays 80s and 90s stuff.
Yeah,
he started with these. He's got these little segments. These, the music. And he comes on, and it's some kind of science thing. And he's just reading it, right? But he's got that John Tesh voice. Well, I don't know when, maybe a year ago, maybe 2, he started letting his producer talk. And this guy's not, it's John Tesh. John Tesh has got the voice.
Right.
He's got the cadence. He's got the producer Bill or Bob or Mike or whoever. No, he doesn't have any of that. Like, it's not. And then he's kind of just kind of an average guy. And I've noticed over the last couple months, he's gotten really bold in what he's saying. And you're like, this is interesting that John has gone from a completely solo show to adding as producer, who's I don't think is very good. I think he's just adding up. It's just color commentary. And so, you kind of go, John, what are you doing, John? I know you wanted another voice, or you wanted something new, but listen, that's a big show. It's a big syndicated show. So it must be getting decent ratings for that to be allowed. Because if John Tesh's numbers started to drop, the producer would be silenced to get that guy out of there, right? So it must be working. But it's another one of those format changes that you kind of go, like Mike Rowe or like John Tesh.
Well, speaking of that, I work for a polling company.
Yeah.
How is there anything, and maybe you can answer this, maybe let's say I'm John Tesh, I make a format change, I'm bringing in producer Bob. How long do I let that go to give it an official test? Is there any kind of information?
I don't know in media what you do. Some, there's some in TV. Sometimes they do that too fast. Seinfeld is an example, right? They probably should have canceled that and they didn't. And of course, then it's from 3 years on, it got real popular. Then there's probably been some things that have been allowed to go on too long. In TV, they whack them pretty fast. I think in radio, you get a little bit longer of a kind of some leeway.
Because you always hear about the ratings books. We'll have to check. So I don't know if that's even still a thing, or if it's daily now or what. But
I think Nielsen still sends out the books. I think they do, and you fill in. It's crazy. You fill in.
Oh, jeez.
Couldn't you? This was like a year ago. Couldn't you just do that online?
Because there's some things you can test. Like right now, I'm running ads on Buzzsprout ads, and I've gotten maybe 15 clicks, and I think I'm almost 4,000 impressions in. And so and again, anytime you do ads, it's so tricky because there's the ad you're running, there's the page you're sending them to, And then the show, in this case that I picked, almost all the shows are about people looking for exposure. So financial people who should have a podcast, speakers, things like that. So it's hard to tell if something isn't working, why is it? But I was like, well, in this case, I'm going to give it 10,000 impressions and see what happens. And the good news is I like the way they're doing this now, because you can pick, obviously they get to pick you, but then you get to say, yes, you can run my ad. Where before, pretty much anybody could run your ad. And I blew through my inventory in like a day and a half, where now the same audience should hear my ad multiple times. So maybe that'll translate into some stuff.
Chris says in chat, Chris Nessie said David Lee Roth got 3 months on radio before he was canceled. We were just talking about him in pre-show.
Yeah.
With let's take this. Let's bring this back to our audience for a second. Most of us aren't, producing national radio shows. Right. We're not doing television, right? But I would think for us, for the average podcaster, since I'm the average guy, I'll talk from that perspective. For the average podcaster, I think you're gonna want to think about whatever channel you're using to measure this, whether it's going to be downloads, or like in the case of ads, is going to be engagement, or in the case of feedback, let's say affiliates, is it being purchased, or feedback? If you're requesting email feedback, I think you need a good 3 to 6 months to let that roll through to see if it's going to work. One, if it's a segment you've changed and you don't like it, just stop doing it.
Yeah.
If you don't like doing it, say you get a month or two into it and you're like, this is terrible, stop. If you don't like it, it will absolutely show in what you do. Like, you will be angry as you're reading the copy, as you're doing the segment, whatever can. That comes across in your voice, it comes across in your body language, it comes across in everything you do. So just, if you get into it and you hate it, just stop. If you really like it and you're still getting negative feedback on it, that may be one you push through a little bit longer, right? You say, well, you know what? I really like doing this. I'm going to keep doing it. I think in that middle ground, if it's okay and it's getting okay results, just kill it. Just kill it. Now, one of the things by stop doing it, listen to the feedback. If you stop doing it and all of a sudden you get a bunch of feedback, hey, why did you stop doing that? Sometimes you need that break to generate. People won't send you feedback on positive things all the time, but they're great at negative feedback. And one of those things is, why did you pull that? I love that segment. Why did you pull it off? So sometimes you might need to, and this may be counterintuitive to some people, you might need to pull it away to get the feedback that you were looking for in the beginning, right? Doing more of it may not get you that feedback. You may need to pull it away for a while. So just those are maybe 3 scenarios, Dave. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, Danny's got a great point here. He says he agrees with you. It still takes an average of 7 listens or views, et cetera, of something to initiate a brand recall, which is where the brand, lift comes from. So it needs some time. Yeah. I mean, I would say at least a month, if not 2. A month is not, especially if you're only doing a weekly show. I heard somebody say, I've always heard that too, 7 times, but I've also heard in some cases up to 12, depending on what it is and how often. And, but I just know once I was doing the Jim Rome thing to keep on his thing. And he has a thing where he says, listen to me 3 times. If you don't like me by 3 times, you're not going to like me. And so I did that. And I had this jingle. There was a PodSafe song, and this band would sing 1, 2, 3, and then I grabbed the music and I would say like, School of Podcasting is blah, 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 blah. And then I would have these guys come back in, 1, 2. I'm like, give me 3 listens. If you don't like me. And like literally I put that out in like the day after it came out. Everybody's like, that is the most annoying jingle. Do not play that again. So that was one where when you get like, I think I had like 4 or 5 people that said, that was annoying, that I was like, that's enough. I don't need to wait a month on that one. Maybe
not. Like the Cigar Authority, Ed is with us today. They must have recorded it ahead of time. And so Ed's hanging out in the chat. Nice. They have some super annoying ads in their program that stick in your head.
Oh,
and right then, all of a sudden, they become favorites. You start singing them. I was walking up the stairs singing the Jose Dominguez song just the other day. And, something. So, yes, I agree with you, Dave. Sometimes you get that negative feedback. You just need to jettison it. But maybe not. Maybe it needs to hang around. People need to complain about it. Then they can love to complain about it. Then they love to make fun of it. and it can be a lightning rod in your podcast where people they'll give you a lot of negative feedback, but you get some, it's doing its job as far as brand or brand recognition. So I don't know. I guess I'm saying don't immediately throw it out.
Yeah.
Don't be too quick to throw it out.
Well, and Rich Graham has a great quote. He's like, jingles are a cool idea. Where do you get something like that? Look up the Jeff, and Jeff is Geoff, the Jeff Smith. He's the guy that did one for I used him to redo the Marketing Musician podcast, and he does a lot of stuff for No Agenda. There are AI tools now that I've yet to hear one. I know there's one out there that's basically, oh, this one's good. But I know you can have AI jingles because I had one and it was good until it wasn't. You're like, oh, this isn't bad. Oh, train wreck. Okay, never mind. But I know there are things now that you can put in like a topic and it'll come up with a word. I forget the URL because it was just not good. But I've heard other people like, oh no, you need to use this one, and AI will make I was talking to somebody and they said they actually have AI music that they've like written songs with. Like they've used AI to help do this. Yeah, Suno AI. Yeah, that's the one I think I was playing with. I was like, that is not good. But they were saying that somehow AI had helped them write a song and they eventually put it on Spotify. Now, I don't know how well that's working, but I mean, I was laughing because in my last newsletter over at podcastingobservations.com, I just talked about how I'm doing something new and it seems to work. And that is when I wake up, I figure out 3 things that I want to do before the end of the day. And I said, so 3 is a magic number. And I guess it's because it's more than one, and you kind of have to prioritize which ones you're going to pick. And immediately, 3, it's a magic number, was a jingle on Schoolhouse Rock. And I was amazed at how much Schoolhouse Rock was stuck in my head. I can sit here and go, 1 times 12 is 12, 2 times 12 is 24, 3 times 12 is 36. They had this whole jingle, and you'd sing along. It was really catchy. So whoever wrote those did a great job. So, yeah, I mean, Rob has a podcast. That guy came up to me once in a conference and sang my jingle to me. He's like, the School of Podcasting with Dave Jackson. I was like, all right, I guess it's sticking in your head.
It sticks. It sticks. I just went to OpenAI, the ChatGPT version, and first I asked, do you know about Ask the Podcast Coach? And it actually brought back a whole bunch of information about it. I like to do that first because then I know it's got some context. And then I said, can you write a marketing jingle for the show? And here's what you want to hear what it came up with? The marketing jingle it came up with? Verse 1, are you ready to podcast your dreams? Join Jim and Dave. They've got the means. From newbie tips to pro advice, they'll help you grow. And that's precise. Now, this is the chorus. Ask the Podcast Coach. They're live every week. Answers to your questions, the insights you seek. With Jim Collison and Dave Jackson, too, your podcast journey. They'll guide you through.
Okay.
It gave me 3 verses for this.
Wow.
And a bridge.
Take me to the bridge.
And do you change keys when you go to the bridge?
Of course.
Is that the final?
Oh, if you're Barry Manilow, you do. You go up a half a step.
They'll guide you through. Yeah, well, there you go. Got tech troubles or need some flair? They've got the wisdom. They truly care. Monetize, engage, and hit those charts. With the Podcast Coach, you'll master the arts.
Oh, good. I was hoping they were going to rhyme farts, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be bad. Jim drank too much coffee and now has the farts. Yeah.
Well, that does happen. That's happened before. So there you go. You can get your own jingle. That's Ed. You can maybe if Dave, because Dave is always Dave Garofalo he's always writing jingles and stuff. I don't know, Ed. Maybe this is a new thing for Dave to get some of the jingles that he needs from there. And
where did you go to get that?
This is the OpenAI version. So
okay.
ChatGPT.com.
Got it.
So pretty cool.
Yeah, Todd the Gator said, I think some listeners like the repetitive self-promo ads. It's like a warm blanket that reminds them they're in the right place. Same with the trio of ladies. Yeah, I've had people say, Jason Bryant once, I said, I'm thinking of changing the opening music of the School of Podcasting. He's like, don't you dare. He's like, man, when I hear that music, I'm like, yeah, it's time for Dave. And I was like, all right, so it's part of your brand.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, people look. Listen. I've interviewed guests who listen to my show, the Home Gadget Geeks, and it's got a little guitar. I've got this little guitar riff that opens the show,
Yeah.
and when we do it live, I don't play that in live. I add that in post, and people. I've had people in the chat join us for the first time, like, "Where's the music?"
Yeah.
And then I had one guy do the air guitar, playing the intro in his head, thinking about so. Those kind of repetitive music pieces, I think, are super important. They're a little Pavlovian. They get you kind of conditioned, like, oh, I'm in the right place. I'm listening to the right thing. When I hear your hit it, ladies, I know where I'm at. There's no question in my mind. I'm getting ready to listen to school podcasting. So I think those things are important. If they're a little cheesy or if they're a little cringeworthy, is that what we say? Cringeworthy?
Oh, yeah.
That may be good. Actually, not bad.
I know people. I know the last 2 episodes, and I just kind of did it the one time, and I was like, oh, that's different. And sometimes it's just doing something just a little different, so people go, wait, Dave didn't say hit it, ladies. He said let's start the show.
Yeah,
and he was like, but I've had people say when I go hit it, ladies, they kind of go, it's like I don't know why. It's just like maybe because I'm like, yeah, but I just picture, Gary brought up the Robert Palmer video. I'm like, I got 3 chicks, 3 microphones, and black dresses, and they're going to start off the show. I'm like, whatever. So, people can always find something to be offended about. But here's a fun one. DR wants to know, and this is one of those that she says, can we define a call to action? For instance, is giving out your contact info a call to action? It is if you're saying you can contact me at, Dave at whatever, or are listeners so used to hearing it that it might not count as a call to action? That one call to action per episode thing. Well, you can have, what I always say is only give one, like don't go follow me on Instagram at schoolofpodcasting.com and YouTube at David Jackson at, blah, blah, blah. Like, no. So for me, you could at the beginning of the show say, hey, thanks so much for tuning in. If you like the show, I'd love to hear about it. schoolofpodcasting.com/contact. That's a call to action. What we've had on the podcast review show, I think the record was 11. There was somebody who gave 11 calls to action at the end. And at that point, you lost them after probably the 3rd one. Like their brain has just turned to soup because they didn't know they were supposed to have to remember these. They didn't know they were being tested. So by the time you get to the 5th one, they're like, wait, what was the first one? So I don't know, Jim, calls to action.
Well, yes, that's definitely a call to action. I think you can get away with a lot more than we say. I think if you try to stack your call to actions at the end or at the beginning, it's a little overwhelming. If you can, as an example, the contact me, you can sprinkle in throughout your podcast. Like, hey, I'd love your feedback. You're talking about something, and in the middle of the show, just say, I love your feedback. Send me an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv, right? That's a call to action, but it's not in the traditional spot. And I think, by the way, you should probably have that like on your website. We say, you should always have your contact information on your website. There should be in every single podcast, they should hear from you how to contact you. I say on the Gallup podcast all the time, every time, multiple times. If you got questions, send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. We get now so many emails through that email address because I've said it so many times, people remember it. They're like, oh, how do I? Oh, yeah, it's coaching@gallup.com. That's. Oh, yeah. He said that before, right? Although I still have people say, how do I contact you? I haven't listened enough. But you could sprinkle those call to actions in throughout the show and not stack them up at the end. I think it does get a little overwhelming, or people tune out if you're like, okay, I'm gonna do 7 here. Contact me, do this, do that, like and subscribe, blah, 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 blah. If you pack them all together, be creative about it. I'm not against having more than I think the most podcast gurus say you should just have one. I would not agree with that. But if you feel like you should just have a really, really good one. Make sure it's really what you want. Because if you're going to believe that and if you're going to do that, you got one shot every show to get something that they're going to respond to. So DR, I wouldn't, again, it's your show. You do what you want. So I like to have a 1 or 2 in the beginning, sprinkle a few in throughout the show, and then a couple at the end. I don't think you can have too many unless you just stack up 15 at the end.
Yeah, that's the part that's like
That's a little obsessive.
Yeah. So you could, like on the School of Podcasting, I always at the very, like within the first 30 seconds, I'm like, go to schoolofpodcasting.com/listener, or since we're on Ask the Podcast Coach, if you go to schoolofpodcasting.com/coach, I think I have set up just so I can track where traffic's coming from. Yeah. She says, DR says, yes, I really feel like the listening public can handle more than just one. Yeah. I never thought it was one call to action per episode. It's always been try to do just one so they can focus on that one thing. I'm right now reading Coach Builder from Donald Miller, and he's Mr. Story Brand, and he's always about, like he says, when you go to your website, they should be able within a second figure out what it is, very clearly what it is at the top of your page. And he's very much, if you confuse, you lose. So he's all about kind of making it super clear on what is the one thing. And I do ask that if I'm doing a coaching session, like, what are you trying to get out of this podcast? How are you going to judge your success? Because that should be the last call to action. So if it's, I'm trying to grow my audience, well, then tell them to go to yourwebsite.com/follow and follow the show or whatever it is. But in the middle of the show or somewhere else, and if you like, look, I can't just do one call to action, then do what I call the website sandwich. So you go, schoolofpodcasting.com. We've got over 800 episodes out there. You've got the newsletter. Of course, you can sign up for the School of Podcasting there while you're at it. It's all there. One place, schoolofpodcasting.com. So it's one call to action with a bunch of call to actions in the middle of it. And you've got that, what I call the website sandwich. Because sometimes if you just go, visit our website, they're like, why? Join my newsletter. Why? Well, you might want to tell them. So you're like, it's, you get free, it's schoolofpodcasting.com/newsletter. You'll get tips, you'll get insights, you'll get updates, bonus content. It's all there. schoolofpodcasting.com/newsletter. So it's multiple, that one thing, but it really does come down to, at times you have to figure out what mode am I in? Am I trying to grow my audience? Am I trying to sell my audience? Am I trying to, get them to answer a question? That whole 9 yards can be kind of tricky. Danny says, I use 2 calls to action, mid-roll of my membership option and post-roll of recommended in review. Yep, I'll drop naturally in the show, connect on Twitter, but that's more of a in-conversation thing. Yeah. And then they're having their own conversation here. Apparently YouTube and Audible now have rules around disclosing AI. Oh, yeah. That's a new thing in YouTube, that if you somehow have a robo voice, you have to disclose that. Because I know James Cridlin now, if he has a quote that he's pulling from a press release or something like that, he'll have 11 Labs make the voice for him. And then as he's moving on to the next story, you'll hear that robo voice say, I was made with 11 Labs, and he's off to the next thing. So,
that's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
That's a good way. Did you also see YouTube changed the thumbnail creation section where you can generate one via AI? You can upload one, still upload one, or generate one via AI, which is, and then there's now a test button where I think for folks who are getting lots and lots of downloads, you can actually test different
A/B split testing for
A/B testing. Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's actually a super handy. That's kind of some super handy functionality in there for YouTube.
What's interesting is both TubeBuddy and vidIQ. That was one of their features. Like, hey, you can do A/B split testing with a thumbnail now. And I have TubeBuddy. I do not use it. It's really stupid. I'm just letting my money on fire over there. But it's always interesting when you see these kind of companies that are adding functionality to something, in this case, YouTube, and then YouTube goes, that's a good idea. I think we'll just make that native now. Like, oopsie.
Well, let me be clear, the AI-generated thumbnail is not what you think. It's still the old, it just pulls back through the 3 examples that you can choose from of one of the 3 if you want. So it's not like it's making that thumbnail based on the content. Although, how kind of cool would that be if you could take a transcript, and maybe you can do this somewhere. I haven't tried it yet. Put a transcript in and say, create the best YouTube thumbnail for me that would, via YouTube standards, whatever they're looking
Yeah.
for, and it would generate that. Maybe one of those will already do that. I'll have to, because my thumbnails are terrible. I just go with what they find. It's two talking heads. I've put like you have here, I've put the name of the show above me and the show number down below. So I know that. I stole it right from you, but that's on YouTube. That's what I use for my thumbnail. I don't get a ton of views on it anyway. So it's like, I'm not going to spend a bunch of time making a thumbnail of somebody,
Well, see, that's where those might say the reason the reason you're not getting that many views is because you're not spending that much time on. Yeah, when I
very true.
I listened to Andrew Scott talking about this, and he was saying how if you're getting into YouTube, you better focus on your title. In fact, he actually played a clip from YouTube saying you need to focus on the title and the thumbnail. And I was like, well, that's why I don't get a lot of views on YouTube. Jody's asking, so what do you use instead of TubeBuddy? I actually use TubeBuddy. I mean, I have an account. The other one is vidIQ that I hear a lot about. Oh, I forget the guy's name. But there was a video guy I used to follow, Tim something, and he used vidIQ. He was kind of a YouTuber that I trusted what he said. And yeah, Radio Free Pro Wrestling, up to 3 thumbnails for testing on YouTube. Just tried it out this week. I apparently it may be out to everybody because I know for what the guy just mentioned, Andrew Scott was saying that they were rolling it out to certain people, but not everyone. So maybe it's out to everyone now. But
I'm going to call BS on this title thing, just to be honest. Listen, I watch a DIYer who does everything the wrong way, and his thumbnails are the most boring things I've ever seen. And his current title is Cabin in the Woods, Precious Metals Score. That's his title.
That is not a good title. That's
no. This just came out this morning, 2 hours ago. This video came out 2 hours ago. It already has 15,000 views.
Jeez.
And he has 400,000 subscribers. So like, I know YouTube is saying this. I'm calling BS on it. Like, I don't think it's just thumbnails, and I don't think it's just titles. I think some of those things are important in what we're doing, but I think there's other things that work in this, and I don't exactly know what they are. But again, I know YouTube is saying that, and I know some very popular, podcasters are talking about that. But man, in some of the ones I watch, and some of the ones I look at, and some of the ones like the movie ones, Dave, the movie stuff on YouTube is terrible. Like where they're doing movie reviews and stuff, it's terrible. Gigantic views, terrible titles,
right?
Awful, right? And they're getting hundreds of thousands of views. So YouTube, is it really titles? Is it really the thumbnail?
Yeah.
Really? Or are you doing something behind are you not telling us the truth of what you're really doing?
Wait, a big company not telling the truth? That can't be.
Rich says 4,000 subs helps. Yeah. So it's not just title, and it's not just a thumbnail. It's subscribers. That's what matters, right? I mean, so are we back to like and subscribe? Remember how we've been saying recently? Everybody's saying, "Oh, it's not about liking and subscribing anymore. It's not about any of those things. It's not liking and subscribing." Stop saying that, because it's not about that. I call BS. I totally think that's wrong. But that's just me. Sorry.
I would love to know who Patient Zero is. That, like, because I know for the longest time, everybody's like, subscribe, ring the bell. Like, subscribe, ring the bell. Smash the bell, even if you want to. And now I've heard, like, oh, you're not supposed to say that anymore. And I'm like, why not? Like, did it somehow, like, and they'll say it doesn't work, even if they say it doesn't work as well. And I'm like, yeah, but if it works some, and it takes 2 seconds to say like, subscribe, and ring the bell. By the way, when I'm saying subscribe, if you watch this on YouTube later and I say subscribe, the little subscribe button gets this little squirrely thing around it. It's a new thing that YouTube added.
Oh, nice. And it's still about comments. Like the shows that get more comments get more views. Listen, YouTube, don't tell us the wrong things. Like, it's still about liking and subscribing. It's still about comments and audience interaction. So let's just be honest here. And And yeah, these thumbnails kind of matter. And yeah, the titles kind of matter. And yeah, the tags kind of matter. But it's still really about likes, subscribes, and comments. Still really is. Yeah.
And good content always helps.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, I'm not sure good content matters.
Well, here's the thing. No, you made a good point. There's a guy, you've been filled in is his thing when he leaves. Oh, it's going to drive me nuts. What's going on? He starts off his show. How's it going? He calls his audience beautiful bastards. Oh, it's going to drive me filled in. Anyway, Philip DeFranco. There we go. Okay. Philip DeFranco, to the point, if it's a drinking game and you drink every time he says, let me know what you think in the comments, you'd be hammered by the end of the show. Everything, he's like, blah, 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 and this guy in Congress is doing this, and now they're doing this and that. Like, you know, and what's really interesting is I would love to know what you think about this in the comments. Let me know. Our next story is blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Let me know what you think. And by the end of it, I'm like, yeah, I know. You want to know what I think. Because I even I said, if this was a drinking game, and I'm like, and I was like, apparently somebody came down from the YouTube mountain and said, comments are important. And this guy's all in. I was like, geez.
By the way, if you disagree with me right now, leave a comment below. Would you throw a comment down below? Just let me know if you disagree with me or agree with me. Leave a comment below. And like and subscribe.
Yeah. And then Todd the Gator says it's 50-50 on the call to action with like and subscribe. Yeah. And then Ask Ralph Podcast. It's the truth that you have to get comments. Perhaps we all just need to start saying outlandish stuff. It is true, outlandish stuff. If you want to find outlandish stuff, Google the phrase Jillian Michaels left California on YouTube, because she was on somebody's show and she's look, she basically says California is too weird. She's like, look, I'm a woman. I'm a gay woman. My mother was Jewish. My father was Arab. She's like, I have black children. You know, on and on. She's like, I check so many boxes. And she goes, and with that said, it's too crazy. And according to Jillian, there is a law in California. So my source is Jillian Michaels on a podcast, that there's a law in California that says a 24-year-old male can have sex with a 14-year-old boy. And she was like, she's like, that's where I drew the line. I'm like, nope. She's like, if you come after my 14-year-old boy and you're 24, she goes, and I have a gun, things might be. It's like, but she's very outlandish in it. And I've had 3 people go, hey, I know you used to do a Jillian Michaels show. Have you seen what she did on YouTube? And so I did an episode about this. It's kind of weird. You don't want to just say outlandish stuff. But when you do share an opinion, people are either going to like it and keep listening, or they're going to go like, oh, I can't believe they said that, and off you go. And you have to be okay that you might have just said something that, you know, half your audience just went away because you said, I don't like key lime pie. They're like, what? You know, so it's crazy.
Well, I also think you got to start. This is a lot of the YouTubers I watch. They bring in the negative comments from previous videos and talk about them. And then, of course, people start thinking, oh, if I leave a comment like that, I'll get my name. It's crazy how that kind of stuff excites people to have their name mentioned, you know, when you throw, like when we bring comments in. By the way, the best way to get your comments into us, join us live on Saturday mornings, 9:30 Central, 10:30 Eastern at askthepodcastcoach.com/live. So they look at those, you know, they look at that, and you kind of think, for you, Dave, for you and I, if we really wanted to grow the audience beyond what we currently do, and we wanted to grow it on YouTube, we would probably need to work really, really hard that instead of these comments going to chat, which doesn't serve us any purpose,
right,
they would be going down into the comments below. And then we would be wanting to generate some controversy in there. And when you do that, you're going to take the trolls with you on that. You're going to get some really nasty comments. This is the bane of every YouTuber I've watched, is their nasty comments. And everybody says, oh, I got thick skin, until you really start getting some zingers. And then, like, people get mad. I mean, they take personal shots at you. They take personal shots at your family. They start saying creepy things. They start showing up in the town you live in. This is what you, if this is the fame that you want, if you want this kind of stuff, this is what you're in for. And so, you got to be really, really careful what you wish for in that. And then thinking, well, yeah, I'm going to be a giant YouTuber. Well, okay, you better start getting ready to protect yourself in some of these things. And thick skin doesn't do it. I mean, because people come right after you.
Yeah.
And it's depressing. It is depressing.
Well, and the fun part is if you're remotely vulnerable in your video, you've just told people, here's the soft part of my body that you can really sink an arrow in and just nail me. Yeah. Jody says, but I love key lime pie. That was just an example. Key lime pie is delicious. I would have to say coconut. I'm not a huge coconut fan of stuff. I know. I've just did you hear that sound?
Terrible.
It's all the coconut people are tuning out, Jim. We've lost the coconut
audience. If you like coconut, just let me know down in the comments below. Yeah. Danny says he's waiting for someone to send their own thing to us for stupid stuff in podcasting segment. Yes. If you haven't checked out inaroundpodcasting.com, that's one of my favorite segments. Mark was nice enough because they did one where, and I used it. That was the whole point. In fact, that's actually one of the things that inspired it, is when people share their opinion, if you share that opinion, there's a part of you that's like, amen, brother, preach on, sister. And so I was listening to In and Around Podcasting, and they did this kind of long segment of people at the podcast show. And some of them, I loved when Ariel Nissenblatt said, people think I'm going to grow my audio podcast by starting YouTube, not realizing that you then have to promote YouTube, so the YouTube will then promote your audio. It's like you keep adding things that then need promotion to grow to the thing, so you're going wide instead of deep. And I was like, oh, that is such a cool way of saying that. I was like, it's another. So, yeah, when you voice your opinion, that's it. Meanwhile, we have to kind of take a turn here from, what are you laughing at, Jim, before I... You canceled, Jeff said that Dave canceled coconut, and then then Todd the Gator said, coconut's my trigger word. So I love, again, if you're an activist around coconuts, leave your comments. We'd love to hear from you.
Yes, we would love to. That's the other one. I'd love to hear from you. I hear that a lot.
And when I say your coconuts, I don't mean anything by that. Okay? I don't mean anything by that.
Yeah, we're not kicking anybody in the coconuts. Right, exactly. Anthony wants to know, hey, can you suggest a WordPress theme that would be suitable for a podcast? Yes, it's called PodPage. No, I'll give you a real answer here in a second. There are so many themes available for WordPress, but I'd like to know what makes a website theme suitable for a podcast versus anything else. It is, I'll give you an example. I see so many themes, like a magazine theme or a restaurant theme, and it just, you kind of have to go, well, it kind of fits a little bit. It's if you jam it, okay. So that's usually, but second line themes has, if you go to, I think it's supportthisShow.com/second line, they have themes for that. And then if you're using Elementor, they have some Elementor stuff. But I'm here to tell you, if you're building your website, and I say this not because they're an affiliate, even though it is, literally every website I have right now, except the School of Podcasting, and if the School of Podcasting didn't have 19 years of caca behind it, it'd be on PodPage too. PodPage is the bomb. I love PodPage. It's really, I was playing with it. Just to show you here real quick, this is going to sound like a humble brag, but I'm playing with, what if I really wanted to customize this? So I'm reading Don Miller's book, and first I found out that it always puts the name of your show at the top. Well, you can go into your homepage and say, wait a minute, I want people to know what I am the minute they show up. So I changed it from Your Podcast Consultant to Dave Jackson Podcast Consultant. Then I changed the description of the show to what the heck you're looking at. Dave Jackson is an award-winning Hall of Fame podcast consultant. And then I found out you can go in, there's a custom area on the homepage. And so I just threw in a table and pretended it was, 2008. And I made this cute little table, which for the record is ugly. I realized that gray is not working the way I thought it was going to work, but just playing with it. And so I've got here's what I offer. Do you want to join the School of Podcasting? And that's not a link, and it's supposed to be. Oh, it is a link. It just doesn't give you the little. And then here's my, oh my gosh, if you don't hire Dave, the world's going to come to an end section. And then here's how you're going to benefit. And then down here, hey, would you like to work with me? And then all the podcasting stuff. And if I wanted to, I could even remove this stuff. And so I'm finding out that PodPage is a little more customizable than I thought. And so if you really want an easy website, the other thing is, if you like the School of Podcasting, I spend it's $200 a year on WordFence, because the good news about WordPress is everybody's using it. The bad news is, if you want to cause some havoc, let's go after the thing that everybody's using. And so, yeah. But anyway, second line themes. Let me see if I go to support the show / second line. Did I guess right? And the survey says I did. Yeah, so they have a couple themes made for WordPress, they made a theme for WordPress. They made a theme for podcasters. And I was using, if I remember right, Dixie. And then they just have some built-in stuff for, especially with episodes and things like that. So that would be my WordPress theme. But thank you for the question. Jim, what are you using? I know Home Gadget Geeks is on PodPage. Do you know what theme? It's weird, man.
I don't.
I'm officially pretty rusty on WordPress. I went to do some things in it, and I was like, man, it's been so long since I've,
I think it's at the bottom of my site. Maybe not. Yeah, I can't remember. That's been one of those that I found the theme I wanted. I love it.
Yeah.
I put it in. I use the parent-child thing to make it work and to update it. Don't mess with it that much. I put some ads in it at one point, allowed some Google ads to show up and kind of measured that. But I kind of set it and forget it. PodPage is really where, so you go to the averageguy.tv, that's my site. It's got Home Gadget Geeks there as well as everything else. I really use PodPage just as a homegadgetgeeks.com landing page for folks who get there. It by far is the best experience I know on mobile to find, for people to subscribe on. All the links are there, all the buttons to subscribe in the various places are there. And they do a really great job of that. And so there's, you can get the list from there, sign up for updates, which I don't do enough of. Some of those kinds of things.
And you went dark mode. Last time I was here, it was white.
Yeah. I like dark.
You've gone to the dark side.
I have gone to the dark side. But you see the links there over onto the right. As you were scrolling down there, it says, listen on. And a PodPage does this so well. It's so easy to set up. And it's easy to send people. When I say the averageguy.tv, that doesn't set in as well as homegadgetgeeks.com.
Yep.
That's just the homegadgetgeeks.com but I didn't want to change my whole website to that. So I just set that up on PodPage and I pay the $10 a month or whatever. It's 11, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then.
I asked Brendan, because here I've just got it set to just show the buttons of the different places you could do this. And I said I would love, let me see if I have it on, what would be another one? Best Podcasting Gear is a website I don't really do. That one has it at the top. But some of these you can have big buttons. And I said it'd be great if I could have the big buttons, and I think it's down here. Yeah, it's kind of like these, but they're bigger. I said it'd be awesome if I could have Apple, Spotify, and then have a button that says Other, which would then, because I have all of these, and if these are at the bottom of your, like at the top of the page, it can take up a fair amount of your space. And of course, now I can't find any of my site. I think I've done this. I've taken it off most of my sites, but I said it'd be cool if you could have two big buttons and an Other button, because if you have PodPage, if you go to whatever your website is /follow, there's all your buttons that you have currently added. And if you add, all the ones that are available, it's a giant list. And I don't want those on the front page because people have to scroll 1.5 miles to get down to, the actual meat and potatoes of content. And I threw that at Brendan, and he's like, oh, that's interesting. We're actually working on something already like that. And I was like, that's why I like PodPage. So, yeah. So, and speaking of that, so since we've now done a commercial for PodPage, use the link, try PodPage, That's my affiliate link. If you want to learn PodPage, go to learnpodpage.com. And I guess at this point, since we're already doing it already,
that's how you add a CTA into your show, and it's not a CTA, right? That's how you get it done. And listen, we're both avid PodPage fans. I mean, we both use it. I think they're doing great stuff. They make it easy over there, so it makes it easy for us to do that. But that's how it gets added in.
Yeah, it's fun. And I just realized this is one of those. Here's the joy of doing live. I'm going to go to a screen that's not ready because I didn't rewind this page. We're at the last page already. But speaking of PodPage, another way you can support the show besides using my PodPage link is to go to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome. You can be an awesome supporter. And this show is brought to you by the schoolofpodcasting.com, where you get step-by-step courses. You get unlimited, that is not a typo, coaching and a really awesome community. Use the coupon code COACH when you sign up. And don't forget that comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. And we just did a whole bunch on PodPage, but if you're at Ask the Podcast Coach, you're looking at PodPage. And I use Ecamm right now for my live streaming. I'm hearing a lot about Riverside. I might have to sign up just to play. And we'll talk about, what's the other one we was talked about? The super easy one if you're on a PC, StreamYard. We'll talk about StreamYard in just a second. Some sad news about StreamYard here. But if you need more Jim Collison, and if you want to go check out Home Gadget Geeks, you can go to theaverageguy.tv, or you can go to homegadgetgeeks.com. Should I change these, Jim, to homegadgetgeeks.com in the future?
No, that's fine. You can just leave it.
Okay.
That's fine.
And it's time to find our future. So let me share the screen. Who will it be? Will it be Felix over at Latin Podcast Awards? There's Jody Kringle. She's in the chat room, too. Ed is there from Sonic Cupcake. It could be anyone. John Mutz, Craig over at AI Goes to College. We'll find out as we spin the wheel. And it's going to land on Glenn the Geek Hebert. You got to love Glenn. If you like horsies...
don't be boring.
That's it. I thought I had him in here. Maybe I don't. Yes, I do. Glenn, what's your advice to new podcasters?
Don't be boring.
Jim, that's actually pretty good.
Thank you. I've been working on it for a while. Yeah.
So find him over at horseradionetwork.com. And hey, let's just talk about Dan again. There we go.
I'm always afraid he's going to get mad at me when I do that.
Glenn,
you don't think
mad? Yeah. No.
Okay. All right. Glenn, don't be mad at me.
Yeah, the fun part is I've lost. There it is. I'm like, I lost my screen. Yeah, so if this show has saved you time, saved you money, saved you a headache, or if it kept you educated or entertained, you can be an awesome supporter and go to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome. And while we are sharing my screen, let me go to StreamYard has been gutted. And they were bought by a company. The owners wanted to buy it back and they couldn't. And so this is from LinkedIn. Gergely, is that his name? Gergely.
You want to come back to us?
Oh, did I not? Is this not sharing the screen?
No, I don't see us. Oh, yeah, you're fine there.
Okay.
Fine. Keep going.
Just to read this, in unfortunate news, most Hopin and StreamYard staff are being let go after the company was sold. In fortunate news, you can hire them. Here are their details. Here's a list with 40 plus software engineers, senior and staff, as well as engineering managers, product managers, designers, and other tech folks who all worked at Hopin/StreamYard. Is it Hopin or Hopin? Do we know?
Hopin.
Hopin.
Yeah, it's Hopin. Yep.
From all that I heard, the company had a high hiring bar. StreamYard was a profitable product ran by a pretty lean and motivated team. Here's the list of former staff open to being contacted for relevant positions. Feel free to reshare. So it just goes through this list, and he goes to this context on the Hopin StreamYard split and mentions Hopin acquired the already profitable StreamYard service for $250 million in 2021 after raising about $1 billion in funding. This is back when stupid money was flying around. Hopin sold off its core events business in 2023 for $50 million. StreamYard kept operating more or less standalone with Hopin and kept growing in revenue and staying profitable. As the rest of Hopin was sold to mobile app developer Bending Spoons, StreamYard was the most valuable asset and likely what drove the likely large payment Bending Spoons must have made. Hopin has 2 additional products on the sale. Hopin has 2 additional products on the sale. Streamable, also an acquisition, and community product in beta called Superwave. But apparently StreamYard has been gutted, which is just sad because that's...
Well, hold on. Let's make sure we define that so people don't freak out when you say gutted. The software still operates the way it has before. The most of their development staff, most of the folks who knew the platform, it's a fairly mature platform and will continue to be that way for the next couple of years. This is probably a signal, though, for those of us, and I use StreamYard. We use it at work as well, I should start looking. Right now, it doesn't mean I need to move right away, but chances are, we saw this with services like LogMeIn and LastPass. Like they get bought by these giant investment firms. Basically, they're not software people. They're buying these things as an investment, and then they're gonna split them up and sell the separate parts of it, or they're gonna take the IP and license that to someone else, or something along those lines, right? And so this is a big move. I mean, I am sure at this point we're going to see what will most likely happen, or what could happen is we'll see they just cut the most expensive part of a company is people, right? So they just cut all those people out, right? And now they're going to probably raise prices. So don't be surprised, StreamYard friends, if all of us who are on the $10 plan, I'm sure that's going to sunset here at some point, and it's going to go to 25 and 50, and they're going to go the route of Evernote, where it is like, hey, if you were an Evernote person, this same thing is going to happen to StreamYard. So just get ready for it. You mentioned Riverside. I just got contacted by Riverside in a spam-like email that was like, hey, we understand that you're a podcaster and we'd like to talk to you about Riverside. I think it was Riverside. And I think some of those companies that do this, Ecamm may be one of those who want to do it as well. I think they're going to smell blood in the water and they're going to go hard and heavy after StreamYard users, because guys, the days of whatever was great about StreamYard, they're going to probably come to a close. Still working today. I just used it yesterday for a podcast. It still works just fine. So don't hear us say that, but you're going to want to watch the news. For sure. And they're going to try to get and squeeze every ounce of value out of this thing. They paid a lot of money for it. And so they're going to try and squeeze that back out. They're going to squeeze it out of you if you're a StreamYard person. So just get ready.
Craig says Bending Spoons also messed up Evernote, which is why I'm now on NoteJoy, because they were going to double my price.
To fix them. Yeah, they don't buy them to fix them. They buy them. The reason they let the staff go is because they probably have a minimal support staff now. They're not going to make a single update to this thing.
Right.
Like
they're there.
StreamYard is exactly like it's going to be for the next, unless they sell it off or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But it's exactly the way it's going to be, it's a good product. I really like it. It could never change, and I could use it for the next 10 years, right?
Yeah.
But certainly, get ready.
So Jody says, what's the alternative? If you're on a Mac, Ecamm, Chris Nessie says, EVMux, EVMUX. I've never heard of it, but I'll be checking it out. He says it's very similar on how it works and does the same things. So and it's also comparable in pricing. And then Craig from AI Goes to College, Riverside added some sort of live streaming. Yeah, I heard about it. They were on Pod News Weekly. And that's when I was like, oh, I might have to try Riverside again, because the last time I tried it was years ago. And it sounds like you can even stream in HD now, which doesn't sound like a great idea, but okay. So it'll be interesting to see it. But I've never heard of, is it just EVMux? What a weird name. Probably for multiple. Is it evmux.com? Yes, it is. The best way to live stream and record stunning talk shows. And their pricing is $19 a month. I'm assuming that's, and I hate when they do that, $25 a month if you're paying monthly. Everything is free, no powered by EVMux logo, full pro scene builder, logo backgrounds and overlays, slideshow, pre-recorded streams up to 2 hours, unlimited streams, multi-stream up to 4 destinations, custom RTMP, record your content, 20 gigabytes of storage, 2 seats, meaning with your team members. Okay. And it transcribes everything. And then, which is weird because this is the free version. And the free version lets you do, where's the limit? Up to 12 on-screen participants. Okay, this is probably one of those where the basic version has all the free stuff, so that answers one of my questions. You can stream at 1080, 2 destinations for free. Banners, I'm assuming a banner is a display, call to actions, and highlighted comments. Yep, so they do that. You can do tickers, which are great fun. Integrated chats from any platform. All right, we might have to kick the tires on this, Jim. I'm trying to see what's the streaming limit. Stream up to 2 hours each live, total 30 hours monthly. All right, so maybe next week we'll kick the tires on EV Mux. So interesting. It's always weird how people, the different kind of vibes. Like this doesn't have quite the Fisher Price look to it, but the little, all right. Does it work? Web-based live stream. Well, here's the fun thing I have to look at, of course, when I come down here. There is no affiliate program. What a bummer. Oh. But yeah, but I'm with you, Jim. It's not the end of StreamYard, so you don't have to jump yet. But like what did we get?
Google Hangouts. We used Google Hangouts for a lot of years.
And we got a notice on that was going away, and we started looking, Yeah. So it's...
you should start doing your homework. I would start doing my homework. I'm going to start doing my homework now. We used a platform called Zuddle, Zuddl, for our conference. They're more of a conference platform. Their live streaming looks amazingly like StreamYard. Like I logged in my friends we use Zuddle for our last conference, and I had one of the engineers log in to StreamYard, and he goes, "Oh my gosh, this is exactly like Zuddle." I'm like, well, they may be sharing technologies, or there may be some things that were white labeled there. You never really know, but they come at it from a more conference perspective. So again, we'll have to start looking, like you said, I may need to start looking and figuring out like, okay, where are we going? I won't move until it's imminent. It just works, or the pricing gets unrealistic. One of those two.
Yeah, and DR says it's not always a bad thing if people get acquired, because Audacity has made some really great strides since they got acquired. I still don't understand why you would acquire a free program. That's the one that I'm like,
marketing.
I guess.
Lists people. You get a free program, you make people log in, you get email addresses, you can market other things to them. It's a loss leader in some cases. That is why. Listen, on the StreamYard side of things, this could go down the route of, if they don't handle the PR on this thing properly, it may start to slide fast. And if they start losing subscribers fast, well, that's what they're banking on here. They didn't want to sell it back to the founders. They want to make money on subscriptions. If subscriptions slide, they may be forced. They're an investment company. They're not into the love of podcasting. They're in the love of money. That's why they do this thing, right? So you could still see some. This is why I would be careful about moving. We could still see some things where, if people drop off of its subscription side, they may be forced to sell it back to Dan and Gage or whoever would buy it. Those were the original founders. And it may get rescued. So just watch. Don't do yet. Just watch.
Well, Volley was an app I now use again, but it went out of business because they made their free tier too good. So that when they rolled it out, they had all these beta people, and they're like, "All right, here's the paid version," and we all went, "Yeah, don't need any of those features." And they ended up, they ran out of. This is back around COVID, and they just ran out of VC money, and then somehow they found another VC and restructured it. And it was funny because I really couldn't find something to replace it. I found a couple different services that kind of worked, but not really. And so the minute they came back, I'm like, how can I give you money? I'm like, I do not want you to go away. So
to DR's comment in chat, DR, this acquisition is not a good thing for StreamYard.
Yeah.
The fact that they cut the core engineering staff is a direct signal that they have stopped development. This is not an Audacity thing with StreamYard. Let's just be really, really clear. They're not going to improve StreamYard. It's about as good as it's going to get at this point. And to be honest, it is about as good as it's going to get. There's not a lot more things in there. The stuff they were doing to it was pretty minor. Now, they could have done some things. They were trying to make it more of a webinar platform, and there were some things going on to develop the webinar side of things with it, which are different than the webcast side or the podcast stuff. They're not. This is not a good sign for StreamYard. So yeah. I'd love to spin it into some kind of positive way. This is a pure acquisition to strip it, sell it, and take the subscription revenues that are coming in to pay back some investors. I hope they've done their math on this. This could go horribly wrong for them. And so we'll have to see, how this goes over the next 6 months. This is one of those things by the end of the year we'll know, I think, how it's doing or whether it's gone or not.
And it may be great for, like you said, a while, but then all of a sudden StreamYard's going to come out, Ecamm's going to come out, eVooMux, whatever that thing is going to come out with some features, and it won't make sense anymore. Like StreamYard is not bad, just these do more, and StreamYard is kind of stuck in 2024. So yeah. We'll see, but it's a bummer when you hear, 40 people getting whacked. I'm like, ouch. So that hurts.
It'd be great if Descript would make a run at streaming, and then it would all be in one place. I mean, how cool would it be for some of those things to take on some? At this point, it's a really difficult pill to swallow if you're not doing it, to just decide, hey, I'm going to get into the streaming market, because that market's been, folks have been at it for a long time. You got to almost buy somebody and integrate them in, to make it work. If you haven't been doing it up till this point, the ramp up to get there is pretty steep. And only a company like Apple could probably come along and say, hey, we're going to do live streaming now, and actually have a chance of success. So it'd be interesting to see how it goes. Keep your eyes peeled for, and Ask Ralph says he'd love it if you could stream out a script. It would make sense. It would make a lot of sense for a platform like that.
Yeah. Jeff C is up against the same problem I have. He says, I know they're a sponsor for his show, Ecamm is, but I love Ecamm. It's always trying to improve, like the recent Zoom integration, but it's going to be an arms race with Riverside. And yeah, that's one of the bad things. It's like, for the longest time, I said, Libsyn is one of the best media hosts. And then I started working there, and people are like, well, you just say that because you're working there. And I'm like, no, I'm like, go back and listen. I'm a big fan. Jeff says, I think Adobe should buy Descript. They've already copied some of Descript's features. Yeah, but because I'm already paying a monthly fee to Descript. So interesting. I did see something I wanted to share. This was Rob Walsh had shared it. I forget who the original poster was, but it just fits podcasting so well. We do this not because it's easy, but because we thought it would be easy.
Yep.
And I was like, that is so true. We're all like, just talking to a microphone, no big deal. So yeah. Dan says, do we want everything in one place? Yeah, software that is never as good as specialized podcasts for something. Yeah, I'm with you. The all-in-one stuff, like the Kajabis of the world, the Podia, even the thing I'm using now, Zenler. I'm like, I kind of like ConvertKit has some really cool drag and drop easy stuff for their email list. And I was like, okay, but then you get into these other things. It's like Podia just added email to their thing. And I'm like, And then the other thing is if it goes down, then you're kind of screwed. Jody says that you don't want all your eggs in one basket. So, but
unless you really like eggs and you need a bunch of them.
Unless you like eggs. Yeah, that's it. Well, one other thing I joined a Christian podcaster Facebook group, and I'm going to say a blanket statement to all my Christian buddies in podcasting. You're overthinking it. Like, you're just everybody over there. And I get it, because they're, again, if I paint with a very wide brush, some Christians are a little behind on the technology world. And so they're finally getting in. But the things like, here's one. Hi, everyone. I'm struggling for ideas on growth, as I seem to be going the other way with listens. what have people done to improve their visibility? This isn't the one I thought it was, but we'll take this question. What have people done to improve their visibility? Would really appreciate some advice that wouldn't cost money, as I'm a dad of two and can barely afford the Podbean. So here's my question, Jim. There was a presidential race. I don't remember it might have been a Clinton thing. I don't know. But somebody said, it's the economy, stupid. Like why is this and that? And so when
Ross Perot? Was that
maybe
Ross
it
Perot?
was, yeah. Ross Perot, yeah. The penguin of presidential races. Now look at here. That's as dumb as a cow in a mud shed. Like, what's a mud shed? Yeah.
Imagine if he'd had PowerPoint. Like, imagine Ross Perot with PowerPoint.
President Perot, yes, I would. That's all I needed was PowerPoint. But here's my question: is it too simplistic when somebody says my show isn't growing to say it's your content? And I guess here's the problem: the word "grow."
Yeah.
Grow means many things to many people.
Yeah. Isn't everything your content? I mean, it doesn't really just, what else can it be? Like, that's all you have out there. I mean, there is an element of really good marketing. Really good marketing can cover really bad content, right? But eventually, it kind of, or your content has not found your audience. And I love I want to grow my show tenfold, but I don't want to pay any money. And you're like, well, you're going to pay it in time or effort or dollars. If you're going to find your audience, you're going to have to find some ways to get that done. And if you're religious podcasts, leave your comments below. Religious podcasts are a niche, right? They're a niche of a niche of a niche in a lot of cases. If you're expecting to do this as outreach, or you're hoping, you've got to go if you're going to do it, you got to go the Joel Osteen route and is that the right name? Osteen?
Yeah.
Did I get that right? Joel Osteen. And just be super generic and be happy and be very positive and be like, you got to get out of the niche if you're going to expect the big numbers. And so I don't know. It is a little bit unrealistic. I don't want to spend. I want to be popular. Okay, I'm making up voices there. I want to be popular, but I don't want to spend any money, and I don't want to do anything. Well, that's not the way. Just start a lemonade stand on the corner if that's what you want to do. You got to spend some money. You got to put some effort in to find your audience.
Yeah, and actually, I thought you had it right. I thought it was Olstein. It's Osteen. There's no
Osteen.
L.
Okay, no L.
Happy Jesus, man. He's a
good guy.
I saw him live,
Dynamic
man.
speaker.
It's an amazing guy, and he's it's interesting because he still has his toe. Actually, he's got a foot in the Christian thing, but he also he's not beating you over the head with stuff. So he kind of is self-help as well. He's kind of straddling both those kind of genres. So. Yeah, and Ralph says, hey, watch that, buddy. There's a lot of Christians. Well, yeah, see, this is where Jim and I can both go. We went to church. We know what we're talking about.
It's a niche. It's a niche.
But I think it relies, I just meant not so much just for Christians, but any podcast. If it's going backwards, as this person said, it's your content. I would think, unless you don't have a website, your audio is horrible, like horrible. You never get to the point. You're talking about, snuff films one week and, unique snow globes the next. I'm trying to think of things that are just like way out of.
I always get a little concerned when you start reaching.
Yeah, it's it's going to go out.
Say something offensive at this point.
Yeah, so you kind of have to have a little bit. It's like with music. I always say put podcasting with music. So if somebody said, "Oh, Dave, I'm doing a blues podcast," I'd be like, great, but I still might not like it because if you're going to pay like Orange Lemon Peel Johnson from 1920 and it's like, it's super static and it's like, no, I'm not listening to that. I understand this guy was the forefather of, I'm like, but I'm just not. No, I'm not listening to that.
You did that pretty well. That's a good static 50s
dude,
sound.
When I hear Robert Johnson, right? He's the guy that I went down on the cross. It's literally, that's what it sounds like. And I was like, okay, I get it that this eventually inspired Eric Clapton. I'm just saying, I'm not listening to that. I can't, no. So, yeah. And Ralph says, yeah, you got to spend money sometimes to make money.
You do. Yeah, in almost all cases you do. Yeah, sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes you do get lucky, but it's a pretty unusual circumstance. You know, you think of like a Rebecca Black. That's maybe a perfect example of this. A Rebecca Black with Fridays. Was that the name of the song? Fridays. Want to get down on Fridays, right? It shouldn't have been popular. She didn't do anything to make it popular. It just went crazy. Did. Yeah. It just did, right? And it created memes and genres of its own. And poor Rebecca, right? And can we call her Becky? Poor Becky in this case, right? That happens. The odds, you might have better odds of winning the lottery than those kinds of things happening. And I think that's a lot of people are thinking, they take a lottery mentality. They're like, if I can just get lucky enough to have this, well, maybe, but probably not. So the rest of us just got to do a ton of practice and a ton of work and make it and be faithful and answer your listeners' emails and get out there and beat the street and do some things to promote yourself and buy some promotion if you can and do some nice things for people. Like just keep doing. Right, just keep doing stuff, and maybe some of it will go. Most of the time, no. Listen, I'm going to make this stat up, and I should know this stat, but I think for every 100 businesses that start, after 5 years, one of them is still in business, something like that. It's the chat room will probably have the stat. It's pretty low. When you're starting a podcast, you're starting a business, and chances are, listen, you can do a lot of podcasts for almost nothing. Businesses take money, so they fail. But yeah.
Craig says it's great to be lucky, but it's a mistake to count on it. Yeah. Randy says Justin Bieber was found on YouTube, and now we have to suffer for eternity. Yeah, it's
the Biebs.
I can't play even 10 seconds of a song because this is on YouTube, right?
Yeah, you would not want to do that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. Okay, because I found Crossroads by, and I'm like,
listen. The Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, those are created. Those were created bands that had tons of money put behind them and marketing to be popular, right?
And a very target audience, young girls, man.
Right on. But NSYNC didn't start for free. The Backstreet Boys didn't start for free,
right?
They were manufactured bands, right? That somebody in LA or whatever said, hey, let's put these 5 guys together. And then they spent a ton of money in the early days to get them marketed, to get them out there. And they were in part of the system. That's another way, that we see some podcasts that are coming out that way, where it's like, hey, let's get a person, or let's create something. Then we're going to put a ton of money behind marketing, and we're going to do all the things. By the way, those 5 guys in both bands, except for one, have almost made no money. Like they didn't.
Oh, from the band, probably. Yeah.
They were on the wrong end of the contract, right?
Yeah.
I think Timberlake is the only one who really came out of that thing.
Joe Fatone or something. Of course, he made money from Dancing with the Stars, and he's done a few things on. Yeah, he doesn't have the Mansion on the Hill, but he's done some stage acting. But I couldn't, call me crazy, but I can't name all the Backstreet Boys. One of them isn't Donnie Wahlberg a Backstreet Boys? He went on to do acting in Blue.
I don't know.
There was a Wahlberg in one of those groups that went on to do acting. So
those good old manufactured bands. Wasn't there some? Weren't the Eagles kind of pulled together that way? Right.
They were Linda Ronstadt's backup band.
Yeah.
Don Henley.
All those guys, I think, weren't they kind of pulled together for a couple years, and then they hated each other?
No, yeah. I mean, they brought in Joe Walsh after he was in the James Gang, and so it's a lot of it is luck. You can't count on it like Craig says, but some of it's luck.
You don't want to count. Some of it's money. Like if you don't have luck, you have to have money.
Yeah.
There
we go. Thank you, Randy. Donnie Wahlberg was a New Kids on the Block.
Kids on the Block.
And Marky Wahlberg, of course, went on to be an actor, but he was the guy that was famous for his underwear, right? He was Good Vibrations, was Marky Wahlberg. Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch, if you remember. Man, this is dusting off some cobwebs. I was actually in the Funky Bunch. I'm way in the back, but I didn't make it into the video.
Wow. We have descended into the depths of the 90s.
Yes, that's it. Hey, speaking of Justin Timberlake, if you're on Netflix, do not watch the movie Reptile. I was like, oh, Justin Timberlake and Alicia Silverstone. I'm like, oh, okay. Absolutely waste of an hour and whatever it was. It was, and not that he was bad in it. It was just like, I don't care. And then it ended weird, and I was like, oh, that's an hour and a half I can't get back. So
yeah, well,
there you go. Jim, what's coming up on Home Gadget Geeks?
Yeah, my good buddy Adam Hickman joined me for the week. We talk a little bit about fitness, but from a how can you do it without spending a lot of money? Because, gym memberships are expensive and all that equipment. And Adam's got some great ideas, and they don't necessarily cost a lot. And so we spend a little time talking about that. That episode I just released this morning, that's out now on homegadgetgeeks.com.
I'll have to check it out. I know there's an app I have called 7, and you're supposed to exercise for 7 minutes, and you're like, 7 minutes? And by 7 minutes, you're like, I can't do anymore. Please don't make me do another. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's on the School of Podcasting. We are talking about, and this sounds weird, what is a book that you've read more than once? And if you want to answer that, I will be getting those answers in about 2 hours. But if you go to if you go to schoolofpodcasting.com/question, and you might ask, Dave, why are we talking about books on a show about podcasting? I'm assuming my audience probably reads maybe the same types of books. It doesn't mean a podcast book, but any book that you read. But I'm also going to learn, I think, a lot about my audience by this. So, I mean, if I ever do a survey, I might want to ask, what other podcasts do you listen to? Because those might be networking opportunities. But yeah, the chat room has gone nuts with Backstreet Boys trivia here. And
coconuts.
And coconuts. Yes. Thank you to the chat room. We'll see you next week with another episode of Ask the Podcast Coach.